Thomas Paine, December 23rd, 1776. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer here with my good friends, Michael McGreevy, Jamie Slingerland, and a new guy, Jason Pearl. Jason Pearl, welcome to EFM. Good to have you on. Jason, you may remember, was on, I think, episode 80, asking a question. Jason's been around EFM for a while, an active part of our mastermind, and a great friend. And you may be hearing his voice more often. But Jason, welcome to EFM.
Thank you, gentlemen. Excited and happy to be here, obviously.
Pretty buttery voice there. You are most welcome here.
Love it. Well, hey, we are just four guys crazy about our wives. We love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And this podcast, Entrepreneurial Family Man, is a place to talk about those important domains, to discuss sometimes the struggles, the tension that we face. Fellas, let's be honest. Tension and anxiety, fear, whatever you want to call it, is pretty high right now. And coronavirus is all over the news, all over your social feeds. You can't get away from it. And frankly, even compared to last week, it's become a much more of a local and national issue, and emergencies are happening and stuff is shutting down. Life as we know it seems to have changed in a big way. And so today on this podcast, we wanted to address leadership in times of crisis. How do you lead, especially in your business? How do you lead when all around you it seems like everything is hitting the fan, the world is ending? What do you do to take leadership as an entrepreneur? So I want to start with that today.
I saw my buddy Miguel McGreevy reach for a Bible, and that's a good place to lead, right? To find out what the good book says about what we do in times of crisis. So, Michael, what do you got for us?
Well, I was reading this morning just part of David's story, and something popped out to me because they were talking about his leadership. I'm just going to read this. It's from 2 Samuel. When one rules over men in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God, he is like the light of the morning at sunrise on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings the grass from the earth. When I heard that, I was just like, oh man, you ever woken up early and saw the sun come up and it just hit you, and you're in this moment, you're almost frozen in time because of the mystery of it, because of it's an unexplainable feeling what happens when you watch the sunrise on a very clear day. That's what is required of leaders right now, especially in times like this, that we would be a bright light in a really dark time. It also talks about after the rain being that bright light that causes the grass to come up and grow. I mean, we're not in a rainstorm right now. We're in an all-out hurricane, right? We're here to guide people through and be a bright light and remind them that there will be better days to come. There will be new growth on the horizon. Right now in these dark times, man, do we ever need leaders to step up and be that bright light?
Michael, I love that. I love that you brought up that particular verse, and this bright light idea is so needed. We have to be that example. And it's funny. I'm not sure if you were reading my mail or what, but this morning I got up extra early and took a walk on the beach at sunrise just to take in this day, take in this week ahead, because I know there's going to be even more pressure. There's going to be even more required of me as a business owner and employer to tackle what's in front of us. And it's not easy. It doesn't feel good, right? But man, do we need to take bold, decisive action in this period. So guys, let's do that. This is something that sometimes in this podcast, life directs what episode we are going to record and what topic we are going to address. And today we just cannot shy away from the fact that this is on the minds of every entrepreneur. What do we do? So I want to launch into point number one. And actually, Jason Pearl, again, welcome. Would you help us address topic number one here?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So obviously, as you all just stated, in times like these, I think the first thing, especially when we're talking about the four of us being entrepreneurs, the first thing you really have to do is take inventory. You have to take inventory over your business, but you also have to take inventory over your life. If you want to bring it and start it out with business inventory, you want to think about it as cash on hand. Take inventory of what are your resources financially right now. Many of us are going to be going through a time of uncertainty of earnings, of outstanding receivables. What we need to do is we need to take an inventory, both personally and professionally. So a few ways that husband and father and business owner would be: number one, look at your cash on hand, right? What resources do you have financially available to you? And then number two, outside of the cash you have on hand, what are other options you may have? What is your debt availability? What are your options to potentially refinance your home or things of that nature to create, some type of short-term cash? First things first, I think it's inventory.
Yeah, I like that, Jason. Taking inventory is huge. Jamie, I want to pitch it to you. As you talk about and think through that topic or that first step of taking inventory, let's just get real here, guys. Let's get raw, like literally. I mean, what are we doing in each of our households, in each of our businesses last week and this week to take inventory? Jamie, what's that look like for you?
I like the idea of our family budget. In the next 90 days, there's uncertainty, so we don't know how long this is going to be here. Worst case scenario, let's say it's several months, and we don't have control of what comes in. But what we can decide is how much are we going to spend? What do we actually need? And if we can have a conversation with our wife that looks like, if something goes bad, what do we pay first? It can seem a little bit like it's doom and gloom, but the fact is, whenever Ruthie and I have a conversation like that, I walk away feeling a level of peace because I know at least there's a plan. If something bad happens, I know that we're going to go to the grocery store and buy some food so that we can eat before we're going to pay the house. Or for some debt, they can wait, but we're called as Christian men to take care of our family first. I was joking around earlier with you guys, but I sent you that clip from a movie that our family loves, Princess Bride. Do you remember that scene? Wesley goes into the pit of despair and he comes out dead because the guy put like all the way to 10. But they're sitting there on the castle wall and there's 60 guards. And basically it's the scene in a movie where all hope is lost. And then they start coming up with like, well, what do we have? I love that because when everything seems like hope is all lost, something happens if we just start looking around and saying, what do we have? All of a sudden we gain optimism and we gain hope. Every time me and Ruthie come up with the plan, I just know, okay, at least I have something to grasp onto if things go bad. That's why I think the family budget is so important.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Jamie, because when we don't know what's going on in our business, that's when fear really takes over. When there isn't clarity about where we stand, it's easy to let the emotions just sweep you away and cause you to get so off track. So you begin shining a light on what's really going on in your business and your finances. A whole lot of peace can come from that as well. I'm doing that as well in my family. And the funny thing is that the thing that has helped the most as I've taken inventory is on the spiritual side of reminding myself and my family that God is on the throne. He is our provider. So no matter what is happening, if we play our parts and we trust in him, it's going to be okay. That's a part of me taking inventory. How about you, Chris? What does it look like to take inventory in the Nehemiah household?
Yeah, well, I'm with you guys on the family budget. In fact, Alicia and I are going to talk about that this week because really it is. It's looking at the essentials and the non-essentials. Jamie, like you mentioned here, even some of your what would be considered essentials, like a mortgage payment or electric, some of those bills can actually, frankly, they could wait if they needed to. Food on the table is the most important, right? And so, really prioritizing. Okay, this month, you know what? Maybe we need to skimp here and there a little bit. Maybe we need to save here and there, and that's okay. And I think the same is true on our businesses. And Jason, you talked about how cash flow forecasting is so important. I had a call this morning with a friend from California, and he's got a much bigger company than I do, kind of been accountable and prayed together. And he was talking about just a lot of the fear that's gripping him. And we went back through and went over a cash flow forecaster that I've shared with you guys before too, that we've used in our businesses and personally. And it's actually BAM goals. So BAM being the acronym baseline, amazing, and miraculous, as possibilities for what cash flow and expenses could look like. And I've got this template that I've used and you guys have used. So I added the Y today. This is new for you guys. BAMI. BAM goals. BAMI is Y for yikes. That means, and you can just manipulate the numbers here to go and input, where's your cash on hand, input where possibly income may or may not be coming, but you've got some fixed expenses to make those adjustments. But again, to your guys' point, this is a step that's needed to take inventory as you're approaching leadership, taking inventory of your business to know where things will stand and how that will get filtered to your family when you talk about that family budget.
Nehemiah, I remember you sharing that spreadsheet with me right after I lost my number one product on Amazon, which was a $30,000 hit to my yearly income. Having you walk through the reality of what was going on in my finances created so much peace. I'm really glad that you talked about the fact that you and Alicia are going to have that meeting. I know Ruthie and I also said that we're going to have a meeting. And I would encourage all of us just to talk to our spouses.
Yeah, absolutely, Jamie. And one of the things that I think that as entrepreneurs that we really need to be mindful of is look at the exact reality of the situation. I'm an optimist, always have been, always will be. I'm a half full guy, right? But sometimes that it's to my detriment if I'm looking at a business. I can say, things are bad now, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay. When you're taking this inventory, you have to look at it and almost make it black and white. Like, this is what's going on right now. These are the funds that I have, or this is the inventory that I have. I need to look at it just as that and make decisions based on that, regardless of if I'm being pessimistic or optimistic. I know sometimes I get myself in trouble by being an eternal optimist, and I need to look at it black and white. So definitely something to consider. Yeah,
it's a good point, because none of us want to be pessimistic or sky is falling, right? But in these uncertain times, it is wise, it is prudent to look at possibilities, right? To look at scenarios, to be able to forecast, because we can always forecast when things are rosy, right? But to be able to forecast when maybe they're always going to be that way is just as helpful. And so that's the first step in this being a leader in crisis, is to take inventory. And secondly, is to connect and diversify. Michael McGreevy, I want to turn it to you. What does that mean to you about connecting and diversifying as a step toward leadership?
Yeah, so once you know where you stand, once I know where I stand, then I begin to think about, well, what can I do? This is the reality of where I stand, and this is the reality of what the opportunities are. I get thinking about, so I know I want to be a leader in this space. I want to be somebody who can support others and serve them well and build trust with them, because that's just a business principle, and that's what I've built my business on. And I look at times like this as an opportunity to offer that in a huge way. And this is not for me to close a sale. It's not for me to sell a coaching package to somebody who's hurting. That might happen, but I know that in the long term of business, being a guy that offers support and is somebody that's there for you when you're going through something difficult, that builds a lot of trust. And that might end up being an opportunity 3 years from now, who knows? But I'm not going to stop being who I am as a coach just because times are tough and I can't close a sale. This is actually a time when I want to be even more intentional about connecting with people and reaching out. What a great reason to do that when someone really needs support, when they're overcome by fear or they're wondering about what's going to happen in their life or business. I want to jump into that. I want to dive right into those conversations and be a light in those conversations. That doesn't hurt my business. That helps it down the road. So that's one way that I would do that. And I'm also thinking about, okay, if this thing falls completely flat, what am I going to do? And that's when I start thinking, well, what other skills do I have at my disposal that I could potentially make income from? I came from a construction background. There's opportunities to do side jobs, to do handyman work, to take on a full-on construction project if I needed to. So I want to be lining up all those opportunities and reaching out to people and making sure those connections are strong. So if I need to fold into or shift completely and fold into another opportunity, I can do that.
Yeah, Michael, it's a really good point. If you've been intentional about building relationships from your professional network over the past few years, now is a really good time to take action on those relationships. Chris had mentioned, reach out to a buddy, see how things are going. You may be able to learn something from them, but you also have some common connections that may not be in your exact business, but may overlap or may have opportunities to partner. Now is not the time to be proud or to stick your head in the sand. It's time to reach out to your network and look at those ways that you can diversify and potentially partner with folks to generate some more revenue for your business or something along those lines.
I like what both of you guys are saying. Michael, remember a couple of years ago, I gave you that book by Jim Rohn about the seasons?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite books, and it's just appropriate. He goes through just the attributes of each of these seasons and about how there's just opportunity and pain and growth uniquely in each season. We all get to have another winter season, depending on the length of what happens here. Even on the news, they're talking about staycations and people are going to be working from home remotely. When you think about new opportunities or diversifying, as entrepreneurs, we all have areas where we want to grow. I'm just thinking about some of the stuff that me and Ruthie are cultivating. There's just time to plant seed, work on new skills, to read books, maybe turn off all the negativity and just sharpen the axe with a new skill that you can use when we all come out of this.
Yeah, Jamie, you talked about essentially that growth and opportunity can come from pain. And that's really what we're talking about here is there could be more pain or unease, right? This is kind of just like that analogy of going to the gym and breaking down the muscle. No pain, no gain, right? And there's going to be that pain. The connections you have, the relationships you've built, the skill sets that you've mined and grown, give that opportunity to diversify in what you could bring in. And it may not happen this month or next month. It may not happen till next year, but there's ability to lead in this crisis by collaborating through those relationships, by diversifying. This is a point that hit me over the weekend too, was I have a couple of different businesses. One of them is and the longest one going has been in the travel space. Guess what? Travel and tourism is probably the biggest industry that's been hit so far. And that business is hurting. But I had to just take a step back and be thankful in that over the course of the last couple of years, again, Jamie, to your point of growing in skill sets, I chose, because I saw where I was heading, to develop some other skill sets of some coaching and some consulting and some other leadership roles to bring in new sources of income, new revenue that was diversifying away from just a standard, maybe more traditional travel business. And I've seen the fruit of that. And also, like we've talked a lot about on this podcast, real estate, knowing that there's some real estate income, some passive income that's been coming in. Who knows how that could get hit, right? Because tenants, if they lose their jobs, we'll see. That's part of what you have to do to navigate this time of crisis. It's a great point in terms of step 2, to connect and diversify, which leads us to our final point, and that's to be bold. To be bold and proactive in the face of crisis. That's what it takes to be a leader. So how can we do that practically? What are you guys doing last week and this week to be bold?
Chris, being bold obviously isn't easy in a time of crisis, but it's certainly necessary, especially when you're leading your own business and you're leading your family. I'm a sales consultant. I'm a sales and growth consultant. When you look at the landscape of this world right now, a lot of businesses, the last thing they want to hear from is a sales guy, right? Or a sales girl, right? Trying to sell them something new. where I'm leading myself and my team through this is being bold and proactive in how I'm communicating with my clients, not sticking my head in the sand, being present, being available, being heard, in saying like, listen, I understand the landscape has changed. Let's be strategic about our revenue sources, where they're at, how we communicate with the people that we're already connected to, make sure they know that we're here to help. We understand that being sold something isn't something you're concerned about right now, but how can we help you? How can we be of service to you during this crisis? When you do that, you'll find and you'll hear what people need. Once you disarm the fact that you're not trying to shove something down their throat, they say, okay, you're right. All right, well, I could use you this way, or I could use your help here. And it's just being open and available to have those conversations.
Yeah, I love that, Jason. And you're so right. It's not easy to be bold in times like this. It almost reminds me of everyone who's got chutzpah when they're commenting on Facebook posts or when they have road rage and they're in the comfort of their car. But when you're standing in front of somebody, everything changes, right? How you got anything to say now? It's kind of like that right now. Like the true character of a person is revealed in times of great adversity. And this is one of those times. So your character is being shown right now to yourself and the world. And that takes a step of boldness, even when you don't feel it. And so for me, my initial response to this is, I'll just hang back, hang with the family and hope it blows over. But I know I'm being called to more than that. And so I'm going to step in and take some action on some of this stuff. So I'm not going to just talk about having conversations with people and growing relationships. I'm going to do that. I'm going to step into it, make a plan and execute on that. I'm also not just going to dream about potentially doing a construction job. I'm going to see what's out there. I'm going to make some phone calls and let people know that I'm open to that.
I'm in a similar spot, McGreevy, where if I sit back and forecast and think and make wise decisions, I have some action that I know I'm called to do, but there's a level of uncertainty that I didn't have a couple weeks ago. It's easy to shoot the gun when you see the target and know where it's going, but I'm still feeling called to shoot, but the target is kind of moving a little bit and there's just a level of uncertainty. We have to activate as wise as we can and realize that maybe it's not going to turn out exactly the way we want. It's risky. And in my business, I built it up enough that I've gotten kind of used to knowing when I plant seeds, kind of knowing what it's going to produce. And now it's all in question, but I'm called to keep planting the seeds regardless.
It's not easy to go through the trials, right? But you guys are absolutely right that this is when leadership gets tested and character is not just produced, but revealed in these seasons. And so I think this is an opportunity where, you listen into what is it that I need to be bold in? Where do I need to be proactive? From my vantage point as an employer, end of last week, I had to make a really tough call with my team. My wife and I met the night before. I just said, honey, here's frankly the facts. This is our travel and tourism company. It's being hit hard. There's projections from the airlines and cruise lines that they're going to cut capacity by 50%. So we decided we have a team of 10 employees. We decided that, let's say that we've got a plan in place until end of April. And the number one step that we want to communicate to them is that we as owners are not taking a penny from the company until this gets resolved. And then secondly, to our hourly employees, we said, we're just going to need to furlough you from 5 days to 4 days. And our salary employees, we're going to need to cut your earnings 20%, again, just temporarily to see how this plays out. Man, that did not feel like a comfortable decision to make. I've never had, back in the Great Recession period, I had 2 contractors. That was it, no employees. This is a whole new ballgame when you got employees and families to feed and mouths, But to make the decision and then to have the call was refreshing. And I'll tell you guys, I had calls with the team and then individually. So there were actually tears, but of joy from them for not losing their jobs right away. A couple of them directly thanked Alicia and I for taking the step we did to make sure that it started at the top. So maybe that's you. Maybe you have to make this decision as the owner for a period of time to push pause on some earnings, to take that leadership example in your company even as you have to sort out what may or may not need to be done with employees and their termination or effect on them. But guys, this has been a good conversation. It's a hard one. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to talk about crisis, much less having to man up and be a leader. So what about you? Coronavirus is all over the place. We can't get away from it. And there's opportunities as a leader to really lead in a time of crisis and fear. So number one, take inventory. What is it that you need to do to weather the storm? Taking inventory in your business, finances, and in your household. And then that second step of connecting and diversifying. Who do you have in your network, in your circle of influence to connect to? Perhaps there's going to be opportunities there to diversify some income where you guys can collaborate and come to maybe a new realization of doing business together to help one another. And then thirdly, just being bold, taking a proactive position as an owner, as an entrepreneur, to say, these are the bold actions that are going to be taken. And I'm going to look at everything that I've previously done, taking inventory, diversifying, all that, and make some bold decisions. So we just ask you, in fact, we implore you, sit down and take inventory of what it is in front of you. What are the numbers saying? What do they suggest? Where could you take some bold, decisive action to put you and your family in a good position during this time? And frankly, reach out to us at efmlife.com, connect in our Facebook group. We're going to have more conversations about this, more opportunities and ways to connect with us. We look forward to those. Until next time, take care.